Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're in the second part of a four-part series where Casey is showing us how to create road corridors, and in this second part we're going to learn how to do the vertical alignment. So let's look.
So once we've created our profile here that has our existing profile for our road that we're working on here, which is this center road running up the middle of the site, we can go ahead and draw our vertical profile. So when you're working with a project that already has a conceptual grading plan done, so this one's a little bit further along the line, but you can take the spot elevations from the conceptual grading plan and then translate them onto your profile that you've created using the stations from your alignment. So this is my alignment here. I can hover roughly about here and see that for the road name, which is Tabasco Trace, we're at 7 plus 23. So I know that my elevation here is going to be 66 at this 7 plus 23. So I know that it's 866. So I can go ahead and go to 7 plus what is roughly 7 plus 23, which is going to be, right about here. I can go up, and then I know that it's going to be 866, which is this guy. Okay. And then I know that I have this 66 here, and I can do that across the entire profile in order to get a good idea of where I want to draw in my proposed profile. Another thing that you can do is you can select the profile and go to Profile View, and then you can go to Profiles, and then here there will typically be the option to turn on your existing profile as well as your proposed profile. And if there is not the option to turn on your proposed profile, you can come up to Profile, Create Surface Profile, and then along the alignment Tabasco Trace, which is the same alignment that this guy's following, you can simply add the PG to it like this. So you can see that EG that was already there was in there, and then go ahead and press OK, and then that's going to automatically draw in. So this is what exists roughly from your conceptual surface that you generate after punching in spots and contours, conceptual spots and contours, and then you can use that as a reference for drawing in your final proposed profile. So I've already drawn in a polyline here using lines and curves. So we're just going to go over kind of the general rule with drawing your vertical curves, which is you want to have it be as smooth as possible. You don't want like big weird jumps like you saw in that proposed grade surface that was there before. You want it to be super smooth for these road profiles specifically. So basically you want to have as few vertexes as possible, and then put curves in between your vertexes so that it's nice, nice gradual curves, and then one, straight linear increase in slope or decrease in slope. Not, what we don't want effectively is where we're going up and we're changing in slope a bunch like this, and then we have a bunch of vertexes where there's a bunch of little change in slopes without curves, so you're having sudden changes in slope. That's obviously not effective to drive on. So here we have a polyline that we've drawn. One of the ways that I like to do this is I like to connect to my starting location at the front, and then I like to connect to wherever I intend to end, like this. And then I kind of I can hover over this center of the line here and hit A for add vertex, and I'll kind of add vertexes as needed. So I'm going from here. We're going to have a curve kind of connecting us from here to there, and then we're going to have basically a straight line roughly to there, and then another one going straight up roughly to here, and then over to here, and then up to this guy. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move the one that I did before off. I'm just using that as reference so I can remember, because I don't have all these spots in here. And then now I can just fill it my polyline using the radius does matter, but I tend to just fill it to make it look a little bit nicer for the time being, because once you draw in your actual profile, it will give you values, the labels, will give you values on the K value, which is what actually matters. So the K value is going to be associated with the radius of your curve. So for K values, typically you're going to want to meet a minimum K value of 12 for crest curves. So these are curves that are cresting over the top. So imagine you're driving and you're driving up over the top of the curve. And then a minimum K value of 26 for a sag curve. So these are the curves where you're driving down and then your slope is changing and you're going back up. So once you've drawn in your polyline roughly, you can go ahead and make your profile. So I'm going to go to Geometry Editor, and then I'm going to select my profile view, and then select Profile Creation Tools. So for this profile, I'm going to name it Tabasco Trace Vertical Profile. I'll just name it VP for Vertical Profile. The style is going to be CVLX Design Profile, and the layer is going to be 0. I like to put no labels for my profile label set, just because I like to add labels later on, because I think that it declutters your screen while you're drawing in your profile view, and it's also going to generate not the correct type of labels without the correct style. So generally I don't like to have my profile be drawn in with labels. Okay, and once I have my profile layout tools open up here, I can go ahead and start drawing in my vertical profile. So I'm going to use the same strategy that I did for the polyline, where I'm going to initially select my starting point here and then my end point here. Kind of the best way to do that, if I can open up the profile creation tools again, I'm just going to click through that just to get them to open up again, is to draw a line. So I'm going to start with a fixed tangent 2-point line from each point here and here. Not sure why it's drawing the line. Okay, there we go. Specify start point and end point. Okay, I guess we'll draw it backwards. That's fine. Or we'll just draw it to there. Okay, because we can draw off of the profile view, which makes sense. So here's our line here. And then we can go ahead and start adding PIs kind of along the way. So again, I'm going to pull over that polyline that I had for reference. Okay, once I have my reference profile here again, I'm just going to use that to draw in my PIs. And like I was saying before, we want as few vertexes in the line as possible, and then to connect it with the curves. So I'm going to select my insert PVI here, and I'm kind of going to do the exact same thing. Just to adjust a little bit, I'm going to move this guy down to right there. And then I'm going to insert my PVI, so I'm going to have another one about roughly there. So we're going to have kind of a slope going up. So this is kind of a weird spot because we're having basically a sag curve and then a crest curve. So I'm going to have one guy right there, and then we're going to have another one about right there, and then that's going to be a curve, and then that's going to be a curve. And then here we're going to have one roughly there, another one roughly there, another guy roughly there, and another roughly there. So we can go ahead and I'm going to move this guy right there. Okay, and so now we have all of our vertices. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the color of the profile just so we can kind of tell what's going on a little bit better. So I'll make it cyan. So cyan is now, actually I'm going to change that guy to blue instead. So the blue one is now our proposed, it's the actual vertical profile, not just a polyline. And in order to add our curves here, we're going to go to the free vertical curve parabola. This is going to prompt us to select our first line and then our second line, and then we're going to click and drag to make it into a curve like this. So I'm just going to click this guy and drag, drag, drag like that. Okay, and then for this guy, I'm going to move him a little bit more forward, basically as far forward as I can. This guy's going to go this way, and then I'm going to do the same thing, select both of my curves, and then I'm going to click and drag as such. Okay, whenever you draw your curves in, you're still going to see kind of the straight lines from, and then your tangent point here. That's not actually where when your corridor references your vertical profile, it's going to draw on the surface along the curve here. So don't, try not to get confused by these straight lines continuing past the curve and meeting here to make a vertex. That's not where your surface is actually going to generate. It's going to generate along the curve here. So once you get used to kind of moving and playing with these curves, it becomes a little bit easier for you to click and drag and move them around, like I'm doing now. And then we're just going to continue to do that all the way up. So like I've said, and I'm going to reiterate, we want as few tangents as possible, right? You don't want a million different changes in slope. We want as few changes in slope as possible, and then curves with certain k values or k values that fall within a certain range in between those changes in slope to gradually, if you're going downhill at negative 5% slope, you want to gradually change into that positive 5% slope to go back uphill. So that's what the curves serve that purpose. And then otherwise, we want as few changes in slope as possible. So again, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to create my curve, and then I can grab this guy to kind of adjust it such that it's closer to my desired polyline here that I drew in for where I want my desired surface. And I'm just going to continue that process, each and every vertex, creating it into a curve. So these are going to be nice big curves here. This crest curve is, and then I can click and drag and move this guy so that it's a little bit closer to what I initially intended, something like that. And it's a little bit hard to get it exactly the way that you want it until you kind of create all of your curves, because the geometry further up the road and further down the road is going to affect the curves and the PIs up the road and down the road. So you can see here when I move this guy, the curve is changing down here. So when I move this guy up, you can see that the curve is getting closer to what we originally had drawn in. So you kind of have to see it as a whole picture, and instead of trying to just move one curve or one PI to get what you want. So that's a lot closer to what we had before. And then lastly, we're going to do this final curve here up at the top. It'll let me pick the entities. We'll try one more time. And there. Again, nice big curve. Pull this guy a little bit more that way. Cool. So now we have something that's really, really close to what we had before. When we drew in our polyline based off of our conceptual grading plan. So I'm going to move that back off to the side. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and add labels onto my vertical profile. So I'm going to select the vertical profile and select Edit Profile Labels. And then the labels that I'm going to add that we typically add is I'm going to select the lines as my type and then add the standard style. So I'll go ahead and hit Add. And then for crest curves, I'm going to select Standard High Point. And then for sag curves, I'm going to select Standard Low Point. Okay, make sure they're all turned on here with the screen check. Hit Apply, okay. As you can see here, the lines is what's going to show you your slope here along your straight lines. And then your crest and sag curves are going to have these big labels here, with the K value here being the number that we're most concerned with on these labels. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab these guys to separate them so we can see them a little bit better. So the K value here of 3.91 and 3.79, that's kind of an awkward spot going on here, but this is where people are turning into the site. So typically when cars are turning in and going at lower speeds, the K value can be lower. So we're not going to be too concerned with this for now. What I'm primarily going to look at is all of the K values further up the road where cars are going to be traveling at higher speeds, probably in this neighborhood, something like 25 miles an hour. So the K value here for this sag curve is 22. Like I said, we typically want a minimum K value of about 26 for sag curve, so I'm going to drag that guy out just a little bit more, and we're going to get that K value of 27, which is perfect. The crest curve here is a K value of 28. We want a minimum of 12 for crest curve, so that's perfectly fine the way it is. And then here's another K value of 21, so I'm just going to drag that guy out just a little bit. Now we're at that minimum 26 K value for this sag curve here, and then for our final crest curve we have a K value of almost 18, which is perfectly fine. Our slopes here, we've got a 10% slope, a 2.5% slope. This guy's a little bit steep at 11%, but for this development we're okay with being just over 10%, because we think that we'll be able to still get our LDP, and we're not too concerned with having a slope that's a little bit high in this region specifically, just because there aren't really any homes on the side of the road, maybe a couple right here in this area. So that's pretty much fine with us. And so now you have your vertical profile drawn, again with as few vertexes as possible. It's a nice, smooth, pretty looking road with few changes in slopes, and then curves that connect those changes in slopes. So you always want to try and draw something that looks like this, as opposed to something down here where we have, as you can see here, a bunch of vertexes, so 5% changing to a negative 10%, and then 10.3%, changes to 8% without any curves there. This is just not right. It's not gonna be correct when a contractor grades it in. So if they grade in what you designed, and ultimately if you design something like this, I mean, especially right here, we go from 0.25% to 13%, right? There has to be some sort of curve there. When you design something like this, if this is what gets built, it's not going to be a functional road. So there's just kind of a glimpse at what not to do with your vertical profiles, and then this is going to work you through the process of what to do to get a correct vertical profile for a functional, well-designed road.